Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pregame Network podcast, episode 92, the only gaming news show on the internet not afraid to piss anybody off, which I'm sure we have it done at least once.
Yeah, of course.
My name is Dan, your gracious host, joined by my bestest pal, Anthony, and
Hello.
we are going to talk about video games and what happened in video games this past week
All that
and see what
stuff.
happens. Yes,
Yeah.
as usual, we will start with what we've been playing this week and then go from there. So I think I gave it to you yesterday or last week, so I will I'll go first
All right.
today.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, so what have I been playing? I haven't really touched much Battlefield as of late. I'm kind of waiting for season two, so I haven't really been burning myself out on that too much. We played a little bit of Peak, which is this fun friend slop game. Yeah, it was worth $8. It was a good time.
Yeah.
So you know how I was playing through the Arkham trilogy as of late?
Yes. Yes.
So I got up to the point in Arkham City where I had to confront Penguin with Mr. Freeze's like
Yeah.
equipment and everything,
You mentioned that
and
last week. Yeah.
I got to this. I found this bug or glitch or whatever where I go through the door to the Iceberg Lounge and the game just hard crashes. Don't know
Huh.
why. Every
Strange.
time it happens, yeah. So I tried, shutting it down, turning it back on. I tried to do something else and then come back to the area. Nope, just hard crashes every single time. So I
Unfortunate.
uninstalled it and I have yet to reinstall it. I plan on doing it eventually, but I just haven't gotten
Okay.
around to it, which is unfortunate because I absolutely love Arkham City. So that is a thing that happened to me this week.
Alrighty.
I put a little bit more time into Highguard because Wildlight has been pretty good on the update frequency so far.
Mhm.
They already added a new warden, or I guess a new character, I should say. I don't know if anyone's gonna know what I'm talking about when I say
Word
warden.
makes sense. I got it. That's good enough, right?
Yeah. So yeah, they added a new warden. They added a new, another new map, a new mount, a bunch of, stuff like that, and then did a big balance pass of just how like the game sandbox works, and it's still just not really grabbing me. Like this is, I don't know, man. I think they need to add in a lot more content and really have the game working like a well-oiled machine,
Mhm.
which I honestly don't foresee happening because the optimization and performance overall on Highguard is just trash. So I don't know how big of a priority that is to them because
Yeah.
I mean usually when a game studio launches a game, if it depending on how it launched, like how the optimization is, it's not really going to get that much better down the road unless
Yeah.
people are just flat out boycotting it, which they kind of are in Highguard. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So that was another thing. Played a little bit more of Cleared Hot, which is that helicopter game that I was talking about a few weeks
Yes.
ago. That's always a good time. It's just fun. It's just a fun game, and we need more of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think that last
Um,
time you talked about it, you mentioned that there was like what was it, an early access or it was getting DLC or something? What
it
changed
is
since then?
still in early access, but they have also added some more stuff to the game, and they are previewing their jungle biome. So that is cool. I'm looking forward to it, and
Alright.
I will give you an update once that drops.
Yeah.
I got the usual stuff going on like Dark Tide.
Yeah.
We played a little bit of the finals just now.
Mhm.
We played a lot of Helldivers yesterday. We
Yes, we
played
did.
Helldivers like most of the day,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, look, I had a great time. I love that game.
Yeah, I enjoy Helldivers quite a bit, although I will say that, I always remember, like, before I played the game, you and Joe always had those similar concerns when it came to the balancing of the game. And I do think that they've barely moved the needle on that front. It definitely feels...
Well, let me push back against that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I understand where you're coming from. However, you did not play the game for the first 2 years it was out. You
Okay.
don't know like just how flat out useless like a bunch of things actually were
Okay.
until they brought it up to where it should have been in the first place.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, there are certain things that are still kind of unbalanced, but for you as a newer player to jump in and like immediately have that perception, which granted, I think you are a lot more perceptive than the average, like I guess the average person who's going to play the game,
Mhm.
and that's not like throwing shit at anybody.
Yeah,
That's
of
just the type
course.
of person that you are. Um, But yeah, you don't know what it was like in the first
Okay.
2 years, so I would just
Let,
take that with
let
a
me
grain of salt.
let me rephrase then.
Okay.
Going from my starting point to where we are now, it doesn't feel like the needle's moved all that much.
Okay.
I know that past the complaints you guys had initially, there have been plenty of updates, plenty of changes. I acknowledge that. It's just I still feel like there's a lot of restrictions to the point where it really does feel like unless you're finely tuning every aspect of your build, and by that I mean like obviously you should try and fine tune what you're going in with, but basically what I'm saying is unless you look up and see what the highest penetration and how much ammo you're getting and all that kind of stuff at the very top and going in with that, basically the game is still kiting around tougher enemies while your stuff's on cooldown and, you know, landing the occasional clean hit with whatever weapon you happen to be on. It doesn't feel like, I feel like this game should be more about attrition and less about like kiting, if that makes any sense, you know?
So I understand what you're saying. However, number one, we have not really given the higher difficulties a fair shake yet. Number two, you don't have a lot of the stuff unlocked as well. I don't remember how many things are actually tied to like your base player level. I mean, I know there's a ton of war bonds that are out already that have a lot of really good shit in them. So unless you're willing to shell out like another, I don't know, $100 or maybe a little bit less for pretty much every war bond. So unless like you're willing to shell out all the money to get all those different items, you still have to like go through and earn the medals to unlock the items like sequentially in the actual war bond. So I understand where you're coming from, but I think you've only hit the tip of the iceberg with what you can actually use.
Yeah, it's possible. The last thing I'll say, just because I don't want to turn this into me judging Helldivers or anything like that, is just that like I look at like the new tank that we were all excited to try, and it's still a good tank. Don't get me wrong, but even that, it felt like the guys at Arrowhead did their little balancing shtick where they added these arbitrary restrictions to it and how like the gunner handles and everything like that, and it just I don't know, it's noticeable. Not stop playing the game noticeable, but it's noticeable, and I think that's very misguided.
Yeah, well, I will say a big complaint with the tank so far is that it is a two-seater. Like you have to have a gunner and you have to have a driver if you want to get the full potential out of it. That's been a pretty big complaint since it came out.
It's not just that; it's also the aspect of like, you know, the range of movement the gun itself has, and like the angles, and if you're not, you know, perfect on where your terrain is, you know. I don't know. It's
all the vehicles. Well, that's just both vehicles, both drivable vehicles. That are. I'm not including the mechs in this because they are a different animal. Yeah. But the Jeep, I guess, or like the Warthog type of vehicle, and the tank, they both, in my opinion, handle atrociously. I just don't think that vehicles handle well in Helldivers. They just don't. Not unless you're on like the city maps where it's totally flat ground. But even then, you're still running into enemies and other obstructions and like debris in front of you. So I will give you that. Okay, so aside from Helldivers, put in some time into Arc Raiders, and we beat Split Fiction finally.
Yeah, we did.
Yes, and I thought it was great. It was a really good time.
Yeah, it was neat for what it was. Most of my problems have to do with, you know, writing, you know, and some of the small.
Yeah, but that was always going to be the case. I'm not saying you should forgive it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't know. It was fine for what it was. I definitely appreciate the gameplay offerings that it has, you know, without going in full fucking review or everything. But I appreciate for what it offers. Yeah,
it was a good time. Definitely one of the better co-op experiences I've had in gaming. Just full stop, I would say.
There's not a whole lot of those.
Yeah. Yeah, true. So anyway, that is what I have been playing this week.
Okay. So my rotation's been pretty much about the same. You know, I got my Street Fighter, got my Guilty Gear, got my Gacha. I have a couple of my buddies are trying to net me into a new Gacha game. I don't know if I'm going to end up trying it. We'll see what happens. But
please don't.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The two biggest things for me, the first is I did beat Death Stranding. So for the first time in a long time, I played it start to finish, right? And I gotta say, Near the end, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. That Kojima fella, he needs a fucking handler, man. He needs a Tard Wrangler of some kind, because
That's hard, frankly.
like I was willing to give it a lot of credits, because there's a lot of points in the story I didn't really care for, but one of the things I liked is like, they're making connections. They're not really talking like real people. Everybody acts like they have a problem, just because that's how Kojima writes people. But like there's like a genuineness in there. There's an earnesty when Kojima says he makes a game about people connecting. Say what you will about the the different aspects of the gameplay and the writing and all that, but that is what he set out to do. It's a game about people connecting in more ways than one. And I like that aspect. I like uplifting stories about the good side of human nature. So on repeat, I was very pleased to see the bright sides of this, even though there are some parts that I really don't like. But man, fucking the end, right near the end, I'm not saying the ending's bad. How it was handled was such a fucking mess, because there's a lot of twists and turns that come to a head near the end that you learn a lot and you get your satisfying conclusion in your cutscenes. But that Kojima man, he followed it up with just like lengthy, like, hey, you've seen this cutscene before. Now we're going to show you all these small cutscenes that you've seen throughout the game together from a different perspective, and then we'll branch off of that. And then when the credits are rolling, we're going to have another character come up to you and explain everything that just happened, just in case you really just didn't understand what happened. And I'm sitting there
fucking dumb.
I'm just sitting there scratching my head like, was this necessary? Like I streamed this game to a couple people, and they seemed on board and understood what was going on through the duration, and I was too, obviously. And obviously there's a point in time where you want to kind of show some of the behind the scenes stuff, but they did that, and then they had this other character just come up and explain everything again. So we got the player perspective, we got the behind the scenes shit that we didn't see before, and then we got like a narration just telling us everything that happened. And I'm just like, this is bloat, man. This is unnecessary. And I'm the guy that goes to bat because I don't know how much you know about Metal Gear Solid 4, the one that was on the PlayStation 3. I know
almost nothing.
Yeah, so this isn't really a spoiler, but at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, there is a very lengthy cutscene. It's like 90
it's like
minutes?
an hour and a half. Or
Yeah,
something
it's like that. I go to bat for that, right? I say that's fine. You know why? We got a full explanation that tied up loose ends. And it was kind of like basically how I broke down Death Stranding, that little ending where it's just like multiple different perspectives and explanations. Metal Gear Solid, this 90-minute cutscene, it gave closure to an entire series, and it explained things that we needed explained. I go to bat to that, and I get a lot of shit for that because I'm just like, you're defending movies and video games. I was like, I don't know, it served a purpose. It worked. It was a satisfying conclusion after the game that Metal Gear Solid 4 was. But man, this Death Stranding ending was just a fucking pacing nightmare and disaster. Yikes. And the final boss kind of sucked too. I didn't remember. I thought it was going to be more satisfying near the end, but yeah. So I beat Death Stranding. Somebody asked me like, "Oh, what did you think about it before and after these two playthroughs?" And I said, if Death Stranding was at a 6, right?
You played through it once or twice?
So the first time I ever played it, it was in bits and pieces on somebody else's file, and then I got my own, and I played it very sporadically over the course of however long. This is the first time I've ever sat down and played through it in like the course of 2 weeks, essentially. And if my initial rating was a 6, not saying that's exact, but like that's close enough. My rating after sitting down and playing through it as a whole is like closer to 6.5. There's a lot more things I appreciated in it this time around. A lot of the the novelty of bumping into other players' stuff. I got more like, even though like I'm not a huge fan of the story, I did enjoy the parts that were more uplifting and just about people connecting. I thought that was interesting. There's certain characters I just couldn't stand this time around that were annoying the first time, but and just overall it was all right, Okay. And it's a lot of it squanders a lot of the good it does, at least in my opinion, but it's not like objectively terrible. There are worse games out there, obviously.
Fair enough.
And then the second game I put a lot of hours into this week was 2XKO. You remember I talked about that once before?
Yeah, the fighting game?
Yes, the fighting game. I played it a little bit again just because it came out on consoles now. The last time I played it was in beta still. And they, it's free to play, so they're doing this. How they handle new characters is the new character comes out during the release window. If you earn a certain amount of experience, you get the character for free. So I was just grinding that out, whatever. And Having put out enough hours into it to unlock the character for free, I am whelmed by the game. It is flashy. It looks nice. When you set the voices to a language other than English, it sounds, the voices are cool. The characters are cool. I'm not a big League guy. I was always off to the side watching other people play League. I never really gave too much of a shit about it, and whatever playtime I have in it is long, long past. I don't know, man. It's a confused mess, I personally think, and not in the way that you think. Like, it plays fine, it handles fine. It's so oddly by the numbers,
Yeah.
like there's only so much I can really tell you about it, or even the people listening, just because of the nature of fighting games. Obviously, it's a bit confusing to get into if you're not playing it, but it's like a lot of the issues I have with modern fighting games, where it's like, oh, there's easy combos where you can mash if you want, you can turn those on. I'm like, okay, but even if you don't turn those on, most of the combos are very basic and easy to do, And it's just like, why would you try to do anything complicated? The game kind of fights you on that if you want to do more complicated combos and you get less damage out of them. And it's janky because in addition to picking your characters, you pick like a fuse, they call it, that changes certain things, like, oh, you can do 2 assists in a combo, or, oh, you can just say fuck the secondary character and just use one character that's powered up. And it's like, by the end of it, it's like I'm trying new things, but every time I try new things, I'm doing less damage and I'm just getting fuck smacked. So I'm just like, I'm ingrained into the basic bread and butter combos. There's a point in time, it's comical. This guy chose like the hardest hitting character in the game and a fuse that is like, okay, you just pick one character and that's who you play, and he gets buffed. And it's just like, if I try any of like the cool stuff, he just hits me once and like I lose half my health. But if I just like do very basic, which is, it's basic for me, but like obviously not everybody knows how to do combos. It's like average level stuff, right? I'm not tooting my own horn or anything. Like if I do that enough times, it's the same shit over and over and over again, but it catches him off guard and it kills him. So I'm just like, at the end of it, I'm just whelmed, I guess you could say. And why I say this is just like, I see people online bitching about it, and like the pros are saying it has no identity, which I guess is like, I don't know if that's entirely true. And the developers are saying, we don't know if this is the gameplay route we want to go. I'm like, what?
Wow, a little late.
The game's, Dan, you say a little late because the game's out, right? And we've talked about plenty of games that do like major revisions after the game launches. This game's been in development for 9 years. 9 fucking years. They bought a studio out that made a game already, so the bones were already there. And it's just like, it came out, and I think the main thing is they think it's not easy enough. I think that's the main takeaway, is it's not easy enough or accessible enough to players. They're not concerned with what people like me say or what pros might be saying, whatever the fuck you care about pro players, but like the average player, the average fighting game player, like they don't care about that. They're saying it's not accessible enough, it's not easy enough, and they seem to not know what they're doing. And I don't know, it's, for the longest time as this game was coming out, I was going to say, like, this is the game that's going to suck up all the players that, can't really play fighting games but like to tag along, like the kind of people that would play Guilty Gear Strive right around now, because Guilty Gear Strive is very easy and built around shorter, combos that do a shit ton of damage. I think they said they want like 3 interactions per match is I think something they said verbatim in one of the patch notes. And I'm just like, I still think it can, but it's like whatever X factor the game needed, it does not seem to have. So I'm just, it's so crazy to me that like after all this time, it's just like, it doesn't, like, I feel like I should be walking away, not with like it blowing my socks off personally, but understanding like, yeah, I get it. I know why a 2x KO player would play this game, right? Like you would identify what people like about it, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't really have anything. It's just light, medium, heavy, an assist button, and special moves without motion inputs. You don't have to do quarter circles. You just press the button, and it's just like, it doesn't.
I mean, come on. Like, I'm not a fighting game guy, but like, I was getting pretty good with Cammy. Like,
yeah. Like, here's the
a
funny thing is,
couple hours
like,
of practice, you can get like a bunch of fucking combos down.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's just like there's this. I'm not going to go off on a whole diatribe, but there is a conversation currently happening in the fighting game community where they're talking about like, games used to be so expressive. What happened? And I'm just like, because everybody who was like a content creator or an old head in the community was just like, hey, fighting games are getting big. That Street Fighter 4, it's hooking a lot of people. We need more people as much as possible so we can get some money in the tournaments and get some money in the ad revenue and all that kind of stuff. And they're just like, we need more players. The games need to be easier. They spent a decade making the games easier, and now you're sitting here in like what's essentially like a life raft, like the sinking ship of the Titanic over there is the fighting game community. You're in the lifeboat with me going, I don't even know what even happened. I'm just like, you stupid bastards. You wanted the easier fighting games, and now my buddy Dan here, who doesn't know a fucking thing about fighting games, is getting better at like just like a more normal fighting game. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to go on a whole rant before I'm even done talking, but 2XKO, I think it needs a little bit of help. I can't judge the player numbers because they use its own launcher, but it's just like, I don't know. I was expecting this to be like a hole that sucks in all the casuals, and it doesn't seem to be doing that. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. All right.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. At the very least, I don't think it's going to die. That's a stupid thing to say because that League of Legends universe just has a certain hook in people. So even certain. The same way that Arcane, animated series came out and blew everybody away and has a very cult following, this will also have a very cult following. And I'm sure they're making bank because I tuned in, man. It was crazy to me. Like, every character has, like, 3 to 6 outfits already, and they're all really, really expensive. So they're definitely making bank.
Of course.
Yeah, that's just a Riot thing. But, yeah, that's what I've been playing this week.
All right, cool.
Before we get to the news proper, Daniel, I have 1 update and 2 write-ins.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, okay. So first things first, update. I'll get the boring shit out of the way because nobody likes to hear me talk and ramble about the things I like. Brown Dust 2. Remember I was talking about that gacha game, got censored, had a whole kerfuffle going on. So shortly after we talked about it last, they backtracked immediately. They did this whole apology tour kind of thing and whatnot, and there's a whole lot to be said about whether or not we have to worry about them making adjustments because self-censorship is still very much possible. Mm-hmm. But they have backed down. They're no longer on Steam. The outfits that they announced were going to be censored are not going to be announced. The characters aren't getting censored. The script's not getting censored. As of right now, that's where it is, right? So with those moves, everybody was sitting around going, all right, when's the other shoe going to drop? What are we going to do? Who is the one that was pressuring this game, these developers, to censor in the first place? And the first 2 countries, the first one I'll get out of the way is like Taiwan, or not Taiwan, maybe it was Taiwan or Singapore or somewhere, some southeastern Asian country had some kind of weird tax related thing, right? And then I was like, okay, well, that's not the smoking gun. We want to see some fucking action. Who was calling out the censorship? Dan, I'll give you 1 guess as to what country was putting pressure on these developers.
Is it China?
No, it was Germany.
Interesting. Oh.
Germany was the culprit. So now going forward, I think they said they're gonna stop service in the region, but it is also possible they'll have their own censored version of the game running in Germany. So that's just a little update right there as far as what ended up happening with Brown Dust 2. So it was, as of right now, things are looking up, although trust is kind of hard to rebuild, especially because it's just like they probably still have those guidelines, and a lot of these companies, even if they aren't directly censored, they will follow those guidelines in order to tiptoe around potential issues in the future. But you should never cater that way, and you should never pander or preemptively succumb to censorship practices like that, because they're always going to want more and more from you. Anyway, so on to our writing questions.
Yes.
Writing question number 1: do you think that the indie scene is doomed to make the same mistakes as AAA game development? They seem to be making a lot of the same game over and over.
That's a really good question, actually, because as we've seen, and just like from the immediate past, I mean, I'm going to pull Highguard out of my hat right now because technically Wildlight is indie. They're completely self-published and funded, and they have no publisher to answer to, only whoever the investor is in that studio, which I think it's just the, we went over this, I think, last week or the week before. It's just the studio heads. They must have made enough money from making, I don't know, the most popular video game in the fucking world that's not GTA, and took that money and reinvested it in themselves and the team that made it. And I'm, of course, referring to the OG Modern Warfare trilogy. So and again, this is just one brief example, but um, are they doomed to repeat the faux pas of AAA gaming? I think that's kind of a loaded question because
Mm-hmm.
I think that some absolutely fall into the pitfalls that the AAA scene gets caught up in time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of the coin, you have all these games that are original, really good, fun games that are technically indie or double A, uh, that people love to play, that they are very successful and they do a really, really good job. An example of that I'll pull out is Arc Raiders. Now, I don't think you can really call them indie. They are owned by Nexon, and the people who make it are industry the caliber of people that are working on it really don't have that much of a effect of my answer right now, but
Mm-hmm.
really more of the fact that they're bankrolled by Nexon. That's a pretty big one, but
Mm-hmm.
they are self-published, right? Are they self-published, or is Nexon publishing them? Is they just the investors? I'm
Maybe
not.
like I'm not entirely clear on that either.
Yeah, maybe it's a little dodgy for a reason, but okay, I'll pick out another example then of an indie game that is that did really well for itself. I guess an indie game. Okay, so do you remember Remnant 2, or just Remnant
Yes.
in general?
Yeah.
So people that played it, myself included, absolutely loved it. And Gunfire Games, who are the developer behind it, they when they made Remnant, the creative director has gone on record and said that when he sees something more than one time in a game, it bothers him to no end. So he wanted to make a game where every time you visited a world or decided to explore X, Y, or Z area, you could see something completely different, which is why there's so much RNG involved with a game like Remnant, really more specifically Remnant 2. I have 105 hours in that game. I loved it from beginning to end. The only thing I didn't do was the final DLC. I just kind of walked away from it by the time that content came out. But going back to the original question, that's really more of like a crystal ball scenario, in my opinion. I think that the vast majority of indie games that are out now that at least I pay attention to, uh, for the most part, don't fall into like the self-eating Ouroboros that AAA has found itself in.
Mm-hmm.
To avoid talking in a circle, I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Okay.
What about you?
So my overall question, there's a lot of I share a lot of similar sentiment with what you just said. My thing
It's not
is,
so.
yeah, the two things I would highlight is that in a sense they almost have made the same mistakes as far as doing the same thing over and over again. Because how many times are you going to hear Metroidvania, roguelike,
Yeah.
card builder, deck builder, all that kind of shit? That seems to be the favorite. There's also Zelda inspired,
Also,
Earthbound inspired, retro inspired,
in
all
what
8-bit.
can you define indie for the purposes of this question?
It wasn't defined for me, but I would say like smaller, extremely small teams, like the
Because like, would
I,
you consider Helldivers an indie game when it first came out? They had a fraction of the people that they did when they first made it.
yeah, but they also
Um,
had backing by Sony. Sony
yeah,
swooped in and put a
true.
lot of money in that. It's tough because it's definitely murky, especially with the general. Like if you look at both ends of video games, you'll see small teams in the early days that could be considered indie today. Like people argue that Doom, the first Doom, was made by an indie developing team because it was just a
Yeah.
group of guys. And then nowadays you have everybody has access to all the tools in the world to make a game, so it's like the lines kind of blur. But smaller production, smaller team sizes is what I would say.
Okay.
But the other thing to consider is that we talk a lot about AAA games and the industry being bloated, right? But when you look at smaller independent ventures and all that kind of stuff, or just like the sheer volume, there's tens of thousands of games that come out in a year,
Yeah.
So like they have a lot more buffer as far as like getting too samey. So I don't think it's doomed necessarily to make the same exact mistakes. They do have an issue with sameness and similarities, but I don't know if it'll ever reach the sheer volume it needs to be comparable, I guess,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of a loaded question because they're just for like the sheer volume of games that get released in a given year.
Mhm.
Um, and a ton of them are indie games.
Yep.
I feel like the model of release a game for free and then your monetization structure has got to be this way, but that has been put in place by, I'm going to go with Fortnite, like way back when they started, like nickel and diming people for everything in their game. It is a slippery slope, but it's like not overeating, right? Like it's on you. It's not on the food. It's your responsibility to make sure that you don't stuff your fucking face full of food that's not healthy for you, or even if it is like too much of it. And that's I'm talking about the developers here. It's really on them to do the right thing. So
Of course.
it's kind of a loaded question, but I think overall, no. But of course, you will always have some anomalies where, I mean, you're going to have studios that try to pull like the scummy microtransaction practices and just try to make out with every single dollar possible.
No, that's fair.
So,
that's a good answer.
Yeah.
And lastly, before we get into the news proper, our final writing question. Do you think a true story-driven, your choices matter game can actually exist, or is it just unrealistic to make a narrative that can account for many player choices?
No, not at all. I think that they can absolutely exist. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of commitment, but I think that it is, you could absolutely have that. My go-to for a game like that, and I'm gonna get some shit for it, but we're the gaming show that it doesn't care if you offend anybody, is Mass Effect. Like,
how could you not mention Mass Effect?
Exactly. And I know how the original trilogy wrapped up, and then they had to release a director's cut after the fact. But I mean, I loved every second of all three of those games, and even in the end, with the director's cut, your choices do make a difference. It's not like, originally it was just a different color for whatever choice you make. How everything plays out and how you end your relationship with all of the characters in the game absolutely has an impact. Like, your choices absolutely have an impact on ending those relationships and those storylines. So I think that, and take Baldur's Gate 3 for example as well. I didn't play it; it's not my thing, but I can respect greatness when I see it. It is absolutely possible to do a game like that. Again, it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of commitment, but it's possible.
My answer is pretty much the same. My caveat would necessarily be just a little bit of an explanation. Is also that, I do think it is possible to have that. I do think we have had small smatterings of such a thing in the past. The older Fallout games, a lot of people like to say Fallout New Vegas. There's a lot of choice in that too. Mass Effect, obviously, I agree with you on that, even though, I actually have a lot to say on Mass Effect's ending, so I don't want to spoil myself by talking too much about it. But
don't tease me, Anthony.
The long and short of it is that Mass Effect would be a good example of that. I mean, last week, couple weeks ago, I talked about Dispatch, and I also mentioned that the precursor they got to that was obviously the Telltale game series. And basically, what I'm getting at with mentioning all these different things is we've had those games for a decent stretch where you'd have one-off games, right? Not necessarily sequels, or if they had sequels, they would be set off in the far future, right? And that's how you get the original Fallout or those old CRPGs and all the kind of stuff where there were different choices you could make and different ways you could reach the conclusion and different ways you could end it. Arcanum was a big one like that too. And it was kind of taken for granted there in hindsight, because it's just this is a game, this is what you would expect from these RPGs, right? And then time progressed, and then we got to the later generations where you had Mass Effect and the Telltale games kind of coexist in that time frame, right? And much like multiple other technologies and angles in video gaming that we've talked about plenty that have just kind of hard stopped in that era, one we talk about a lot is in-game destruction. Nobody really plays around with that technology anymore to make advancements. It's just people aren't trying. All of the budgets for games that would try something like that are going elsewhere, and the writing staff isn't necessarily there. So it's 100% possible, in my opinion. I do think, we would basically need to pick up where we left off in that era where you have the Telltale games and you have the Mass Effect. It's tricky, it's difficult. I don't envy the people who have to write and program and plot all that out, but it is possible. And the last caveat to all of this is that I think in the future we're going to see people try to lean on LLMs and AI as a crutch for that, and I don't think that's a good way to handle it. At least
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
at least my feelings on that.
Yeah, at least not at a story-driven scale. I know we talked to Joe once, and he was talking about that one NPC in the game he was playing that you could just fuck with, and I think that's fine. A little experiment like that. But for story-driven, this thing needs to be crafted. It can't be as simple as you going up to an NPC and just getting random shit out of an LLM. At least for story purposes.
Agreed. It needs to elicit a genuine human emotion, and I don't think those LLMs are capable of that.
Yeah, I'm not keen on the idea, and obviously we will, in due time, we will get experiments, however far off in the future, be it, within the next 5 to 10 years or like way in the future, where there are games that are just like, oh, you go in and you just, anything's game because like the AI will just generate things for you. I think that's kind of a mess waiting to happen, and I don't think it's particularly interesting or satisfying because it separates you all from the core experience. Some people will like that. Some people will like to go in and just essentially like monkey on typewriter it to just get whatever that day or whatnot. But
eventually it will come up with a masterpiece.
Yes, exactly. Like I think that story driven will need to be it needs to be crafted. That's like the only other caveat to consider. But so that's my answer.
Cool.
Yeah.
2 write-ins this week. I am pumped. I'm over the moon about that one.
There you go, bud.
Good questions too.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So with all that out of the way, almost 40 minutes in. Damn. Let's get on. Yeah.
I will get my thing out because I know you have a lot of things to say this week. I'll just cruise through what I have to say, and then you can take it away. All right.
Sure. Go for it.
So Blizzard did like their little anniversary event. I'm sure you heard at the very least. They put.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this, but yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details because they did little mini events for fucking everything, right?
Yep.
The only 2 I had any concern about was World of Warcraft because I have a lot of nostalgia for that franchise way back in the day, and Overwatch because I think it's funny. So World of Warcraft, not to bore you with all the details, they announced a new expansion. They announced like
another
the rollouts.
One?
Yeah,
that game will never die, will it?
Pretty much not. My whole thing is I don't have a problem with so much a game just going on and on and on. Nothing wrong with that. The quality is where I take issue because I've peeked in. Harrison's talked to me a lot about it, and we've both looked at these things because we were both back into WoW in the day, and and like I don't know, it doesn't look particularly interesting. The funniest thing to me is you have like alongside all these announcements of like, okay, we're doing a new expansion. It's called Midnight, and we're finally gonna do player housing. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of neat. But the whole thing is like you have like the main writer who is supposed to come back and save the whole thing is talking about how, man, I wish we didn't call it Warcraft because war is not accessible to audiences.
My God.
And everyone's just rolling their fucking eyes. And WoW's reputation is in the dumpster anyway. So like player housing, like the most tantalizing key jungling thing you can do in an MMO is just not moving the needle for them at all as far as like their reputation. So it's kind of like up in the air. Apparently Classic, I don't know how they're doing World of Warcraft Classic, so I'm just going to speed through this. They're doing Burning Crusade Classic Anniversary Edition, or they're updating it. It's crazy. So you remember they did World of Warcraft Classic, right?
Yeah.
So they've essentially been running through the game again, doing the same patches, the same this, the same that in waves. But at the same time, it's like when they hit a certain threshold that players seem to like, I think they like stop it, and then they just start doing like a fork almost of updates on that. Like I'm pretty sure there's like 7 WoW clients you can play right now. There's the main retail one, there's classic hardcore where you can like, it's like an Iron Man thing where you die, that's it, you got to start over. The Burning Crusade has its own. Wrath of the Lich King apparently doesn't. Cataclysm doesn't, or maybe Wrath does, but Cataclysm doesn't. Mist of Pandaria has its own. They have forks of this fucking game, which is, it's sad, but I guess brilliant for their strategy to like just keep like, oh, we'll encapsulate the version of World of Warcraft you liked because we can't just make a good game anymore and make a good expansion anymore. So that's just one thing I wanted to say. I'm sure. Listen, I don't want to shit on something I haven't played too much. I've just not been thrilled with the direction that World of Warcraft's been going in. I think their direction with all the different forks, so to speak, is like scattershot, just trying to get as many people as possible, which would make sense if they have the lead guy saying, I wish we didn't call it Warcraft in the first place, right? Now
that's so stupid.
Yeah, it is. So the real meat, something that you've definitely heard about and something I find very funny, is that Overwatch. This brought Overwatch back in the news again, and it's about to come back swinging. It might even be out by now. I'm not sure, but it's getting rid of that.
I think it is.
It's getting rid of that pesky 2 in the title and reverting just back to Overwatch for branding. And this rebranding is going to come or came with what is advertised as seasonal updates.
5 different heroes
and
also?
it's launching with 5 new heroes, or launched with 5 new heroes, and they're doing seasonal updates more consistently, because they used to do it like miserable. It was like one character every 3 to 4 months or something like that. No schedule, just at random. And all this is happening because nothing quite lights a fire under your ass like going from no competition to being shellacked by your only competition for an entire year. And so I took a look at this new content. The new characters that you mentioned that we're getting are Kenji, but with guns. Tall, brown, safe, horny office girl boss woman. Same face waifu bait.
Oh God!
Evil Japanese pretty boy, and cat with jetpack. And
I love these descriptions.
Here's the thing: I'm not going to throw shade at the characters, not yet, because the thought process here.
It sounds like you are.
My thought process here is that the releases since Overwatch 2 came out was straight out of their leaked diversity scoreboard. Every single one had some kind of like. Every single character had some. Protected,
are they all non-binary?
Some protected,
is it official in the lore?
There's, I don't want to get. I don't want to.
Just the hesitation alone is cause for concern.
It's like every character update, they would go back and make one of the existing characters either gay or bi or something, and then like every new character was like first pansexual, first non-binary or whatever. And I'm just sitting there, I'm just racking my skull. I'm just like, the characters are looking like more mushy and more bland, but like you got to make sure I know about these different identities that they have or whatever. And it's just like, these new characters look slightly better than those characters from the virtue of, needing to compete with Marvel rivals now. You can't just make, objectively unattractive mush anymore, right? It's actually funny. They did an interview. I didn't read it because it's all bullshit. They felt the need to explain why the new characters looked more attractive, and their excuse was something like, you can only do the same thing so many times, so just by virtue of needing to make characters look different, they look attractive. Like they almost like had to explain it in a way they were apologizing for it.
Is it not just so simple enough to say people like looking at attractive faces and other attractive people?
Exactly. Like that one waifu bait character I'm telling you about. She looks like an amalgamation of the character I play, Mai, in Street Fighter. She's a Fatal Fury character. Yeah. It's like a mix of her and a bunch of other random fighter characters that have existed forever, and they just mushed them all together to make this slightly appealing, character. And it's just like, you're doing this because you finally have competition. You can't get away with not releasing anything for months at a time, and what you release is like garbage. Like I was saying, like, I describe it as, it's only 1 or 2 rungs on the ladder above Halo Infinite as far as how it's supported, right? It came out slightly faster because Infinite stings. Yeah, Infinite was uniquely dreadful in support, but they were doing the same play here. Content at a drip feed, except for the yearly pandering events. Like they would do the Pride Month or the Pride Week or whatever. They would take 2 of their maps and just coat them in the flags or whatever, because that was their priority. And you'll have people say to that, like, oh, why do you care so much? And I just say, just stop, just fucking stop. We've been at this for so long, just stop. Because regardless of anyone's thoughts on these events, the point is the same as every other major example you can think of in the last however many years, right? It's like they put more effort into that than a consistent thing. The only thing separating Overwatch from games like Halo Infinite and Multiverses is the fact that the game was made before Blizzard sucks, so it has a better foundation. Because if any other game pulled this shit where they're releasing, their main focus is on making sure the yearly shit gets done, and there's like a new character like every 4 to 5 months, like they would go under, Yeah, but
absolutely.
Little rant aside, basically, like, It looks promising, but that's only because of the competition. You know, all the people who made base Overwatch promising at all, they're pretty much gone. I can't really think of any major names in there. You know, the people left don't have their focuses in the right place. You know, it's like you said that one time where you were kind of getting fed up in your Destiny updates. It's just like, you know, you're locking in for the Destiny updates, and then like the first thing you see is the pronouns under their names, and then like they just give you shit that you're not like, interested in or you're not sure of.
That's your fucking priority. Yeah,
they did the same. They did the same thing here.
And the vast majority of the developers that were speaking on those Vidocs are like the vast majority of them had regular fucking pronouns. I think it was like one, maybe two people who had like they them and were like clearly trans. So you're doing this one thing to appease an audience that doesn't care about you in the first place for one person that happens to be this one thing that has nothing to do with the fucking game itself, and you're shoehorning it in and shoving it in my fucking face on one of my favorite games. Like,
and like this all comes down because, you know, a lot of people will hear that and they'll be like, why do you care so much, blah 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 blah. It's like, my problem with all of this isn't, you know, isn't inherently who's making these games or the fact that there's stuff on the screen. It's just, it shows to me that their priorities are all in the wrong place. And like you could say in response to me is like, oh well, you don't know. Consistently, when these are the focuses of these developers, it always takes priority over stuff that makes the game better or gives the game what they want. It's why we joked about for years Halo Infinite. I bring it up again. They made sure to, like, I think they did like all the different progressive shit year after year after year. Even though they
do you think the fucking demographic for a game like Halo gives a flying fuck about any of those pandering events?
No,
like who's it for?
I know. It's just the whole thing's ridiculous. But if you bring it up, you're the mean person, even though the games suck and they shut down. And
this is why it's important to fight tooth and nail and not. Course. And like when like you said, when they throw the argument at you, why do you care so much? I care so much because it starts out this tiny and then it balloons to an unsustainable size and structure that will tear down the thing that it's infecting. So fuck you. That's why.
And not just that. It's just like they're asking us why we care. It's like, why do they care enough to put it out there in the first place? Yeah. You know. It's whatever. The whole point is like Overwatch is rebranding because they finally have competition, so they can't just putz around anymore. Because before this Overwatch rebranding happened, I think Rivals passed the amount of content that Overwatch had, like halfway through its first year. You know, like they released characters like it was like 2 to 4 characters a season consistently. So now we'll see if Overwatch puts its foot down.
Who makes Rivals? Was it? It's not Nexon. It's the other one. NetEase. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, they don't give a shit about crunch.
Yeah, they don't give a shit about that. And I see the argument. I see the argument where people are just like, oh well, you know, Marvel Rivals in 6 years probably won't have the same content outlay. And I'm just like, who cares? They could release like 2 characters a year from here on out, and they'd still be beating Overwatch in the content that they have. And Overwatch has been out for nearly 10 years.
Yikes! Big ol' yikes.
Overwatch is like a whole conversation in itself, because that was like just a nightmare, the wasted potential of that game. But yeah, Blizzard had their whole event. This could signal a good change, but they've been off the reservation for way too long. It's gonna take more than a 5-character bump and then some backtracking on the last bits of a misguided sequel to change anything, you know.
Yeah, that kind of trust is not so easily rebuilt. Okay, speaking
that's
about...
all I got. You can...
Oh, wow, okay.
Take us away.
Speaking of studios that are not doing so great, have you heard of Ashes of Creation?
So I've heard bits and pieces. I remember the name for a while. Everybody that I know is like telling me like, oh, can you remember that? I'm like, yeah, I kind of remember it. I know a bit about the situation, but act as if I'm uninformed.
So... Ashes of Creation was a game, or a project I should say, that was started by one guy. It was a Kickstarter campaign that got funded, obviously, and it was supposed to be like this big, vast, like very ambitious MMO type of RPG.
Mhm.
And the developers, their name is Intrepid Studios. They just
Mhm.
basically fucking imploded like this past week.
Yeah.
They couldn't pay anybody. Actually, all the employees just lost out on their last paycheck for, reasons. The guy who founded the studio, or like started the project, he put out a public statement saying that because of the like did not agree with the ethical and moral decisions of those above him that had, I guess, held all the money
Yeah.
for Intrepid, that he decided to walk away. And he just, like, he didn't tell anybody. He just left. He just decided to quit. And then pretty quickly after that, the studio pretty much followed. Like, they basically fired everybody. Ashes of Oh, he also promised that he would reach into his own pocket before like issuing refunds to make sure the game got across the finish line. So they released the game in like kind of this early access state, but it was a complete broken mess that is just
Um,
unplayable. So I guess technically they crossed that finish line and fulfilled that promise, but the game is just not ready. Um, and
yeah.
this is just another example of like very ambitious project or idea from, I guess, one guy growing into a development team of their own, uh, just, I guess, biting off more than they can chew. It's just kind of fascinating. It doesn't really have any
Yeah.
effect on anything, but it's just fascinating that it
Yeah,
happened.
it's an interesting little implosion there. There were so many things just looking in that I just didn't understand. Like, the guy, kind of just fucked off. I'm just like, was that like was that him taking a stand, or was it just him getting out now that like everything's done? Like,
Yeah,
it's
but when you read the statement, it doesn't seem like completely on the up and up. Like it seems like
yeah.
there's some fuckery going on there, but we'll
Yeah.
never know. So,
Yeah, my
but
my understanding is that aside from the place it was in while it launched, people who were like die hard into it, like the kinds that like run streams on it and talk about it
yeah,
online, and that's like their shtick. Apparently, like even if the game were like fully functional, so to speak, the core gameplay mechanics don't lead to like a satisfying like end game perpetual. I guess I hate using this term. I know you're more keen on it. Like the gameplay loop was broken. That's
sure.
how it was described to me.
Yeah, I honestly I don't know how broken or unfinished the game actually was. I just know that this happened.
Uh-huh.
Um, but again, like it has no real bearing on anything. It's just the fact that the studio imploded in such a spectacular fashion, and all the leadership is just like nowhere to be seen. Or the one statement that was released is like doesn't really seem like it's legit.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It was just very, very weird.
Yeah.
Um, but that is a thing that happened. The Intrepid Studios, the creators of Ashes of Creation, completely imploded. Game is basically going to wind up as abandonware, and that's about it.
All right.
uh,
Well, there you go.
so moving on from there, you posted something about the Division, or I'm sorry, Ubisoft Shadow dropped the Division 1 Definitive Edition for $50 with absolutely no improvements. And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but Ubisoft can go fuck itself. They have been the biggest disappointment in gaming in a long, long time, and they were on top for a long time as well.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Like, first of all, what year did the Division 1 come out? Do you remember?
We were both still at Best Buy.
2016?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe a little
It's like
before
when I
that.
started dating my wife, like fucking
Yeah,
10 years ago.
it
That's
was a
crazy.
while ago.
Yeah, so the only thing that's different here is the fact that they collected all DLCs and just packaged it all together
Yeah.
and resold it for, I guess, $10 less than what it originally was. But
Mhm.
like this is 2026, everyone's expecting a certain level of quality, polish, and performance, and you just said no. And like
Just
you just
push
thought
this
this
thing
was
out
going to
the
be a
door.
cash grab. Yeah. Fuck Ubisoft and everything that they stand for. They need to be sold and completely restructured and maybe even dissolved, because it's just so apparent that they're just a money hungry machine at this point.
Yeah.
And I have just no patience for it anymore.
Yeah. We'll see
So
what happens after
yeah.
that last restructuring. You can only restructure so many times before like the Reaper comes, so to speak.
Yeah, for real. So the Division Definitive Edition. Oh, by the way, the art, the key art that is attached to the screenshot that you posted,
Uh-huh.
that's for the Division 2. That's not even for the Division 1. I thought that was funny. That's all.
That's pretty funny.
Uh, moving on from there, we got a new trailer for John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, and this isn't like anything crazy huge, but I think that Saber, who is the developers of Toxic Commando, do a really good job in their own little lane that they occupy, and it's basically been like horde shooter, the studio at this point,
Yeah.
with the exception of Mud Runner, and this game seems like it's a combination of some of the Mud Runner mechanics plus World War Z, plus Back for Blood, but without the stupid fucking card system. So,
Okay.
and I say that in a positive way. The gameplay trailers that I have seen, they look fun. It just looks like a good time. It doesn't look like it's worried about being politically correct, or appealing to every single demographic it possibly can. It looks like it knows exactly what it wants to be. John Carpenter, who, if you don't know, is a very prolific filmmaker. He made The Thing. That's probably his most popular movie. He, a bunch of different movies. Big Trouble in Little China is another one. Escape from New York is another one, I think, and the list goes on. But he's very well known in the Hollywood scene. So
Yes.
he must have seen this and liked it enough to slap his name on it. And I know for a fact that he is a gamer, like, in his own right. So I don't know if he wrote this. I don't know if he's producing or anything like that. But he liked it enough that he put his name on it. So it's got to mean something. But it's in first person. It's not third person like World War Z was or is. I guess it's still getting supported today. And it's like it is a first person shooter, but you also have like these special abilities, and you're also responsible for keeping your vehicle alive because you get to go from point A to point B in this big semi-open world map. It just looks like a good time, is my point, and I'm looking forward to it. It comes out next month.
Okay.
So moving on from that, I'm not trying to fly through things. It just nothing here is like
there's a
really.
lot of small things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before like the one big one, I'm sure you want to talk about.
Right. Well, which one is? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Poker Night at the Inventory is randomly getting a remaster. You said I have no idea what that is.
Oh yeah, they announced it. You don't know what Poker Night at the Inventory is?
Sounds familiar, but no.
It was it's by Telltale. They made it what 16 years ago ish, maybe a little less than that. It was an old. It says that it's what it says on the tin. You play poker, but the twist is that you play it with characters from existing franchises. And the first one you played with Max from Sam and Max, the Heavy from Team Fortress 2, Strong Bad from the webcomic Strong Bad. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It wasn't really for me either.
No.
And then you it's so funny. This is actually an example of a game not aging well to me. I never use that because I think that all games are, they don't really age. They are as they are, and they either hold up, but they don't really age, obviously, right? So you have, all the things that are represented. You have Sam & Max, which is a classic point-and-click adventure, and it will remain with the greats forever, right? You have Team Fortress 2. I don't really need to say anything. It took the crown of class shooters and never let it go. Strong Bad, even though me and you don't really have much attachment to it, it is a encasement of nostalgia from early internet webcomics. And then you get to the last guy, Tycho. When I see this asshole, I'm hit with this wave of annoyance. I imagine it's similar to the feeling all those more sensitive types feel when they see an older movie or show. It's like inverse nostalgia, where if you see a movie or show and you go like, oh, this needed a trigger warning at the beginning, or ooh, it was so awful back then. This guy stands out because they basically chose, and I hesitate to use the word celebrity, but like an internet celebrity of the time. It's basically this guy's self-insert for a webcomic he did called Penny Arcade back in the day. And
I remember Penny Arcade.
You remember Penny Arcade? Okay, so one of the main characters of Penny Arcade is like the last character, and he's just annoying. He's the worst type of person you would want to talk to in that era. You know, the snot, like the before all the annoying people we have today that talk about how bad video games are and how, you know, scolding they are. Like this is like the older end of that, where it's just like this annoying asshole. And I guess this is all to say is like they're remaking one of the better poker games. I'm curious to see if they remove or censor anything, because a lot of that humor probably wouldn't hold up today because people are too sensitive. I'm fucking stunned it's getting a remaster, and seeing that one asshole in this game just made me kind of go, ew. Like, I don't want to see you again. I'd rather play I'd rather play Poker Night at the Inventory 2, which had it was Sam, the other character from Sam and Max, Claptrap.
Oh joy!
Yeah, Brock Sampson from the Venture Bros, and Ash from the Evil Dead, and that's who you play with in that game. And then GLaDOS is the dealer in that one. I'm just like, okay, that cast has aged a bit better, I would say, than this first one. Just make a third one. Go for broke. You didn't need to remaster this. But I think the reason they did it is because one of the tie-ins with Poker Night at the Inventory is like, if you went head to head, like obviously eventually you play poker, you're either the last one standing or you're not. If you knock out some of the other players, you get items that transfer over to Team Fortress 2. And I guess those haven't been in circulation for a while, so maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. They fucked up the lighting in my fucking poker game thing. That's the last thing. They fucked up the lighting, like all these remasters and remakes do. They actually did the whole fucking thing. You know how that everybody talks about, oh, we use LED lights now and they're white and they hurt your eyes and shit, and not the halogen, which is like orange and soothing. They did that to my fucking Poker Night at the Inventory. They have this moody lighting because the whole thing takes place in the inventory, this like hidden club. You know, it's, you gotta have a password to get in and everything like that. And they made it like they fucking swapped out the lights. I don't understand, but yeah, move on. Move on. Get me out of here.
Yeah, moving on. With pleasure. Okay. Horizon. You remember Horizon? Zero Dawn?
Yes, I do. How could you not? It's Sony's favorite IP to jam in everybody's face.
No. Last of Us is Sony's favorite IP. Not Horizon.
Are you sure? Look at the fuck.
Maybe not so much anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. It doesn't matter. Guerrilla is making a new Horizon game called Horizon Hunter's Gathering, and by golly, it looks like hot garbage. I don't know whose idea it was or who greenlit it, but it literally looks like Fortnite.
Isn't Horizon like Herman Holtz's like baby? Is the thing that he loves? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So the fact that it's coming from Guerrilla is kind of interesting, because that means it was their decision to do this with their golden goose. And from the reception that I've been seeing around this game, like around the announcement on the internet, is not great. And it seems to be more of the art style more than anything. It looks like it's a... I don't really know what it's trying to be. It looks like kind of like a boss gauntlet type of thing. Because it's a 4-player co-op, and it's a fucking hero shooter or whatever it is.
It looks like their answer to Monster Hunter, only with like none of the intricate RPG stuff.
So Horizon has another like spin-off that is more in the vein of Monster Hunter than what this is. So
I'm out of ideas then.
Yeah, they beat you to it already. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a thing, I promise you.
Yeah, there's like 10 games in this fucking franchise.
I know. I don't know what they're doing with this. It did, like, I thought, first of all, when Horizon first came out, I thought it looked cool. I think most people thought, at the very least, it looked cool, because you can... the thing that sold it was the machines, right? Anybody can make a good-looking character model, but to make this world that feels lived in with, not necessarily enemies, but just these living giant behemoths that you can climb on and interact with and fight and like tame and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The designs of them were phenomenal. You can see all the inner workings, all the parts working together and moving and everything. In Hunter's Gathering, it doesn't really look like you can see much of anything going on. It looks like it's a hyper stylized version of what the original game created. It does not look good to me. And I don't think it looks good to many other Horizon fans out there.
I mean, I'll be honest. I looked at a few things about it, and I don't want to say like what they did with the art direction isn't very appealing. Like a lot of the designs kind of suck. I almost like the direction the overall like color palette and style went, even though it's not executed very well. And
It looks like that one Prince of Persia game that was cel shaded.
the one that we were talking about a couple weeks last week, a couple weeks. Yeah, I kind of get that. I think the proportions are out of control for the characters. Like you have like these, the gaunt kind of thing where it's just like some limbs are either like insanely large or insanely small. I'm not a big fan of that, but like I remember a lot of the concept art for the first Horizon game, and a lot of it looked like Pixar or DreamWorks concept art, and I was kind of upset. Not upset because I wasn't a big Horizon guy myself, but like looking at the final product, it was a shame that they kind of went the more realistic route, and looking at the tech in this new game, it's like I kind of like the tech around it. Like it looks fluid, the cloth flows right, and all that kind of stuff. I don't hate the way it looks outside of the execution, I guess. I found it funny. The thing that stuck out to me, I was watching the gameplay reveal, is just like there's a part in the gameplay where a door opens and it not only clips, but it settles into another object, into this torch. And I'm just like, I'm surprised that made it into the trailer. That was like the most interesting thing to me. But overall, I mean, Horizon is an industry plant to me. I've definitely said it before. We've definitely talked about this before. It is pushed by Herman Holst. It's his baby. I can acknowledge that there are real people out there that enjoyed it in earnest.
I couldn't make it through the game.
Yeah, but there are people out there that did.
No, I know.
I can also acknowledge that, but in the same vein, I can also acknowledge that most of the numbers that people throw around to justify it, like having 10 games more than any of its other big brands, most of those numbers are fudge or have to do with bundle tie-ins and shit like that. It's like
engagement metrics.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. But like this game, like we talk about, we don't really know who it's for. It's kind of, they've already taken the Horizon series into the niche that I thought it was going into. I was like, oh, this is their answer to Monster Hunter, but I'm not really sure where, you're telling me it's already been done or whatever. But it's just like, I think, it's just, this really just highlights, like, we're seeing like more drips and drabs of a lot of like bad decisions that were made by all these different people, right?
Yeah. Well.
It's like we're seeing this. We've talked about how like the practices are kind of dead, but we're seeing this continuing flux of games like this, despite the consistent failures, or even in cases where they don't fail outright, they fall short of their goals by large margins. Aside from all the reasons we've listed over our near 100 episode run, a lot of companies, like the publishers, not necessarily the developers, but the developers too, the people making the wide sweeping investments and funding these things, or the ideological creative leads and all this shit, these guys bet wrong really early. Leading up to the end of the 2010s, from all angles, top to bottom, they put all their money on the wrong horse. The monetization and support, like live service is the next big thing, and the cultural stuff, like all the different stuff we were complaining about with Overwatch and Halo Infinite, all that kind of stuff. And this is an example of one of the negatives we talk about consistently, where like, that doesn't affect just the guys at the top, but in this case, you see the effects of that is bloat. A lot of the plans were set into motion like 4, 6, 8, even 10 years ago. By the different think tanks and executives at the helm saying, do it, for whatever motivation. I heard, and then you can confirm if this is true if I heard this Horizon game specifically started planning and production in 2018.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that's why you see like all the stuff that we talk about where it just crashes and burns, like where it has kind of come and gone. It's not in the heyday anymore, is because these games, the development of them are just bloated to hell, because of how disgustingly bloated the industry is. This isn't we wasted 2 years, let's course correct. This is we have to do it. We've been making this game for nearly a decade. We got to put it out there, So
Yikes.
So this is just to highlight, as kind of like a little recap, we have this giant ugly ball of executives chasing live service money, or grunt idea guys looking to use whatever project they're assigned to for like some kind of pandering or messaging, and all these nasty these nasty trends in between, you know.
Right.
All of this is being made based on momentum that peaked over 5 years ago.
Yeah. Not a
Most of
good
them,
combo.
yeah, most of them don't know that momentum is gone and think they are in the right when they aren't. And a smaller percentage know what time it is. They're just pushing it anyway in hopes that things will swing back the other way in 2030. Both and when I say this thing, I mean both like the cultural stuff, but also like the monetization. Like it's almost like gambling to them, where they're just one more. We're gonna make it big. We're gonna hit that. We're gonna get that lightning in the bottle. So while I don't have a lot to say on Horizon, it is an example of it's another one of those examples of shit that's just wrong with the industry, like we talked about with Suicide Squad or with Concord or Highguard and all these. Like a lot of it traces back to the same thing, where it's just like people that think they know better, people that are essentially gambling, trying to get the next best thing, and also just a bloated industry basically time capsuling a lot of bad decisions way back when.
Oh, yeah. It just, God, it sucks a lot of the time. Anyway, moving on.
Yep.
You felt the need to put Thomas and Friends Wonders of Sodor.
Oh
in
yes. There's a Thomas the Tank
and I
Engine
quote,
coming out.
"This fucking thing has a deluxe edition DLC."
Yeah, they put James. They locked him behind DLC. It's awful. But no, I mean, there's not much to say on that. I loved Thomas the Tank Engine as a kid. I still kind of, I mean, if it's on, I'm not going to sit there and like, as you could do with a child, Anthony, plop me down in front of the TV and I'll just be enamored by it. But it's like it's good entertainment. It's family friendly. I love trains.
Oh my God, okay.
I
love trains.
A lot.
Might be the most retarded thing you've ever said.
You don't like trains? I'm not gonna be one of those. I'm not gonna be one of those assholes who's like, why does America not have trains all over the place? Because I know there's logistical hurdles, but it is an underrated form of transportation that we could stand to see more of. As far as the game itself, I just found it ridiculous that this has a deluxe edition DLC, and I think it's going to be the repackaging of a train simulator of some kind that exists. I didn't do too much research into it. I just saw that, it blew my mind, and I told everybody I knew. I'm like, oh my God, look at this Thomas the Tank Engine.
I told everybody I knew.
Yeah, I told everybody I knew that there's a Thomas the Tank Engine game coming, and it has DLC, and I don't understand why. And maybe one day I'll probably play it. It's just a matter of when.
Jesus fuck. Yeah. Okay, moving on from Thomas to the train engine.
Tank engine, goddammit.
Sorry. Okay, so this is probably the biggest thing. So I'm gonna hold this until the end, but so we'll move on. Okay, some new Machine Games news that not necessarily is news, but it's really more affirmation as far as what we can expect in the future from Machine Games. So from WCCF Tech, there was an interview with a former the studio director, Jerk Gustafsson. He said, it can be now, it can be later, but we're not done with it. Machine Games will make Wolfenstein 3 eventually.
Okay.
That's just the headline. It's not really worth going into the whole article because it really does just boil down to that. And when I saw that, I was very happy because I loved Wolfenstein 2. As you know, we've talked about it ad nauseum. And I would love nothing more than for Machine Games to make a Wolfenstein 3 as a direct sequel to 2. So that is very good to hear. All I have to do is not die between now and then.
Yes. Very good.
Furthermore, on the topic of Machine Games, they are asking more of their staff to return to full-time office work instead of remote. And you know what? About goddamn time. I think it is... I mean, first of all, the fact that the people are still working from home because of the pandemic is crazy.
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, granted, the companies probably save on overhead, but... Still, I think you need to be in the office to make a collaborative, like a creative collaborative project, and that's basically what they said in the article too. So
yeah, that's pretty much. I agree with you. It's like there's a certain argument to be had about like, oh, in this period of time where everybody was forced to do certain things, finding ways to restructure or finding ways that you could like handle workloads and potential office work from home, that kind of stuff. But like at a certain point, like we got to get back to proper work. Like the industry in itself is already struggling, and I don't want this to continue to encourage outsourcing, because there's always, you run the risk of like, well, if you're working from home, why don't we just get the cheaper guy from wherever the fuck to also work from home, so. best to get
Yeah.
back to work if possible.
Yes, sir. So Wolfenstein 3 will come out eventually, and they want everyone back in the office. So
Yes.
that is good news.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, I put the Highguard story cinematic in this chat just as a reminder, because all of their marketing push now should have been done in the month leading up from the Game Awards to the actual release, because they wanted to
Hmm.
do the Shadow drop, and that really didn't work out so well with them. And all the comments that I see in these videos, and I watch every one of them because I'm curious to see what the community sentiment around this game is, because again,
Yeah.
I really love the development team behind Highguard,
Hmm.
and I will pay attention to what they do because I think that they're just very talented developers. So I am keeping my ear to the ground on this one. But my point being, they should have just completely pivoted after the trailer for the Game Awards and spun up the marketing machine and just started putting out these videos, if only like just on YouTube. Um, it would have been much better for them. People would have known what the fuck the game was in the first place. And now they have all of like these lore dumps and showcases on weapons and characters and the maps themselves, and it just, where was this the 6 weeks leading up to launch? You know, like it could have been much better. And I think they shot themselves in the foot. But that's just me.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
Unless you have something to say, I'm moving on.
No, that's pretty much all of it. The last thing I will say is that there's a lot of doomering going on around it, and I mean it's a rocky time for the game, but it's just like every like other day I have someone say like, oh, look at the numbers fall, look at the numbers fall, look at the numbers fall, and it just seems like they're floating at like 3,000. You're just showing me the same numbers over and over again with like slight 100 variations in either direction. So I think that
Yeah.
we've kind of seen like their current watermark, and precious little time to fix that, because I know
Yep,
I know the devs mentioned they don't care how many players as long as people are enjoying it. That is an excellent sentiment, but you actually need to back it up with supporting the game still.
Yeah. Yeah, as of right now, it's sitting at 4,100 players in game, like right this
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
So, still pretty low, but not awful based on what their expectation is.
Mhm.
All right, moving on. So last small thing before we get to the big one. Arc Raiders, huge success. We all know that. It was made off of a $75 million budget, or roughly, around there. Basically, the article just goes on to say how they have made more than their money back, and they've basically been able to guarantee their financial future, which is good to hear, because I think Embark is one of the better game studios that are working today. As you know, Arc Raiders was my 2025 game of the year. We play the finals pretty regularly.
Yep.
And they're a good, competent studio. And apparently, the rumor is that they have 2 unannounced games in development currently.
That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. But okay, that's all the medium and small stuff out of the way.
Okay.
On to the big one, which
All right.
is kind of like to be expected, honestly. But I think I don't think people were expecting it, even though I'm not shocked.
Okay.
Valve pushed back the Steam Machine launch date due to the global memory shortage. They gave
Yes.
no details as far as anything. They just said it's not going to come out when we said it was originally going to come out. They have not announced pricing or models or anything like that. They basically said due to the current global memory shortage, they can't guarantee certain prices at certain model levels. So it's just like a big question mark at this point. And I don't know how long this whole memory shortage thing is going to last for. I really hope it's not a very long time, because I mean, selfishly, I really do need to upgrade my own memory on my own computer.
Yes.
But I was also very, very curious to see what the performance numbers and benchmarks and everything is with this new Steam machine. Because that would have been like I don't know if I would completely replace my laptop with the Steam machine, but it would have been a strong contender. So I was very curious to see that. And now that it's being pushed back again, I'm not shocked at all.
Yeah.
It's really more of like okay, like this is not just it was probably going to happen one way or the other, because fucking AI is ruining everything. So again, I hesitate to use the term big, but that's probably like the most juicy thing that happened this week,
Yeah.
um, for a reason that everyone is unfazed by. So, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that one?
I mean, overall, I mean, it was really just. But this kind of shows like the one of the benefits of Valve's strategy of like being very coy with their different products, be it hardware or software, because it's
Right.
like I can only express so much in the way of disappointment or shock because they were already like, oh, we're gonna release it, we don't know
Yeah.
when, it is it's unfortunate. That's there's not too many ways to put it. As far as your question about how long is this going to last, I mean longer than you want it to.
Oh, of
That's
course.
just
I
what it
want it
is
to be over
because
yesterday.
yeah, I mean there's always the chance that like again we always talk about a bubble bursting. I even then I don't think it's going to be in a timely manner. On the bright side is that when the bubble does burst or when the dam breaks so to speak, you may be able to get a nice little deal on your memory. Depending on how and when this goes. But it's like it is a shame because while there's also a lot of talk about like next gen consoles being delayed. I'm not really concerned about next gen consoles, but seeing Valve's own hardware being delayed kind of stings a little bit because I think it would have been nice for the market. You know?
Yeah. I have honestly never been less phased or more apathetic towards the release of a new console. I just
Yeah.
don't care.
I mean, even back in the day on the pregame lobby podcast, we were talking about, you can let this console gen go on longer. We were never big hardware guys.
Yeah.
It's like we obviously we want good hardware, we want the best hardware, but it was
I
just like
want
if it works, it works.
I want the good hardware to uh be a thing to empower the games to do bigger and better things to make more of a splash in the genres that I already like. That's the only reason why I would be interested in new
Yeah.
hardware at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah.
The memory shortage sucks. Valve pushed back everything for the Steam machine, including the Steam, uh, the VR goggles. I don't remember what they're called, and the controller
Yeah.
as well.
Was it the Index?
The Steam frame was Steam frame. It
Oh,
was frame.
the index was the old one. The frame is the thing that's replacing the index, right?
Yes.
Am I
Yes.
thinking about that right? Okay.
I don't know what the index is. I don't. Was that the first one?
I think so.
Steam Index.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Valve Index full VR kit. Yeah, it was originally
Oh,
the
okay.
Valve Index, and I guess the Steam Deck is the replacement, and also kind of bringing in a line because instead of just being Valve Index, it is now the Steam branding and all that stuff.
Right.
No.
So, yeah, all that stuff is pushed back. I would probably predict we'll hear more at the very end of this year, depending on how the rest of this global shortage shakes out. That's my personal prediction.
Yeah, probably. If it were any other company, I would say probably closer to like late summer, maybe.
Yeah.
But Valve is absolutely willing to just kind of like
Yeah,
kick
very
the can a
comfortable
little
to take
bit.
their time.
Yeah, of course.
And they don't have to rush it. I mean, it's Valve. It's like the
Yeah.
only company that could even dream of doing that. But anyway, I don't have anything else. I am all newsed out.
Yeah, I've got pretty much everything I wanted to out. Not too much. There's some other developing stuff, but as always, that can wait until next week. We've been at this for a hot second.
Yeah, true. So if you're still listening, thank you very much. This was episode 92 of the Pregame Network podcast. We'll be back next week to talk about more video game stuff and things.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. And on that note, thank you and bye-bye.
Bye bye.